Well, it is now October 3rd, and it is a absolutely beautiful day out here today. It sounds like we're going to have pretty nice weather most of this week. Still really no frost in the forecast for this area, which is unusual for this time of the year. 3 years ago, we had about 2 feet of snow blowing into the crops at this time of the year, so this has certainly been a lot nicer. Checking out some corn here this morning. It's looking pretty good. You can really see the bottom half is still green where the top half got frosted, so it is starting to dry down relatively rapidly. They're in the process of harvesting right now, but we're in a little bit of a maintenance break right now while the cloth machine gets fixed. But the corn itself is looking pretty good. A lot of fields have gotten their post-harvest treatment in the last week or two, but this is not one of them. This field has a whole pile of volunteer barley in it, but that's a good thing because it's right up against this corn pivot, and this is just in the process of being chopped here right now. And these corners are basically just going to get grazed off with the corn stubble by cows, so this is the benefit to having a thick stand of volunteer barley. I've already had a few questions this week as to whether now is the right time to put down soil-active herbicides such as Authority, Focus, Voltaire, or Fierce. So technically you can go ahead and do them right now. However, soil temperatures and growing conditions are still quite good, which is going to mean you're going to start ticking off some of that residual time this fall. The best practice would be to wait probably another at least week or 2 weeks to get that soil temperature down below 10 degrees, probably at least, second week of October, but we'll see what the weather does. That'll give you the longest residual in the spring for fall application this year. Get you your best bang for the buck. So you can see here in this spot, my probe is down about 2 to 2.5 inches. Soil temperature's about 15 degrees here right now. Air temperature is about 25. So we're still very, very warm. So, chemicals like Authority, Focus, and stuff like that are absolutely going to be active and degrading at these temperatures, although they'll still have substantial residual left over in the spring. But any chemistry like pre-pass, those group 2 residuals, you would expect, probably a week or less of residual activity at these kind of soil temperatures. I've got a corn trowel going on in this field here. There's a few different varieties in here. There's some Pride, there's some Pioneer, and there is some North Star in here, and they're all looking pretty good. North Star looks very good right now, so we'll see how it all looks as it comes off. So hopefully this week it's going to come off and all get weighed up. This year I've got some really nice clean cornfields, and a lot of these was because we gave them a double whammy. Right after seeding we sprayed Focus over the top at the 33 acre rate, so that gave us residual control of things like buckwheat and wild oats. And then in crop, when we did have weeds come up, like there was a bunch of lamb's quarters and stuff, we came in here with glyphosate and a stiff shot of sortan at the 50 acre rate, and that seemed to do a pretty good job at keeping these fields pretty clean. There's pretty minimal buckwheat problems, which can really cause a tangle in the corn header at silage time, and it's not very fun, but we're avoiding that this year. Corn trowel should be coming off today. It's not done yet, but it's on the way. So I have picked a sample of ears out of the field. Here we have Pioneer Hybrid, we have North Star, and we have Pride 1027. You can see the 1027 pretty much is averaging the best. It has the best fertility right to the tips, and it's pretty girthy, averaging about 15 to 16 rows. Here we have the North Star. It is quite long, but you can see 2 of the 3 have substantial problems with filling at the ends there. It's also the narrowest at averaging about 12 rows around. And here we have the Pioneer Hybrid. So this was the girthiest here at averaging about 16 rows around. But you can see we did have the same problems in North Star here, and we have some relatively poor fertility at the tips. But overall, all 3 varieties look pretty good. Silaging looks like it's going pretty well today. She's averaging up on the tons, so as dry as it looks, it's coming off at 20 some tons an acre, so that's pretty good. This field of pea stubble here got its post-harvest treatment here late last week of DB878 and glyphosate, and it is coming along pretty well. You can see we're doing a pretty good job here controlling the volunteer cereals and a little bit of quack grass that's in here. The volunteer peas are curling up and going down, which is nice to see. Those guys are using up nutrition and moisture. The main reason we sprayed 878 in here was because we wanted to knock these thistles back. We did hit these guys with a heavy shot of glyphosate prior to harvest as a pre-harvest treatment, and that really suppressed them for a while. Now they're starting to regrow, and you can see this guy here is showing the effect already from that group 4 and the 878, that dicamba. So hopefully we'll see some good control on kind of the thistle in this field. Now we've given it a double whammy this fall. Well, the winter wheat that's been seeded into this potato stubble here is looking pretty good. We're mostly hitting 1 to 2 leaf stage across this field. However, the dryland corners are a little slower to emerge. They don't look quite so good. Unfortunately, this morning, yet another haystack underwent spontaneous combustion out here to the west of Nobleford. So if you saw a big cloud of smoke in the air this morning and could smell it in Nobleford like I could, that is why. So it's pretty much under control now. Nobleford Fire Department is out here helping out and doing a hell of a good job. Some good volunteers out here in this department. Apparently this week we have hit fog season. It is a pretty thick pea soup fog out here by Nobleford this morning. You can see this canola stubble has been lightly harrowed and irrigated, and this volunteer canola is coming up like absolute mad. So that's great. We're supposed to get some pretty good freezing temperatures next week, so that'll be great. We'll get all these guys under control. Right beside that last field of canola stubble is another one here. This was harvested the same day, same variety. You can see there's a bunch of volunteer canola here as well. Except this field has been seeded into fall rye, so this stuff is coming up pretty good here. Starting to get its green color now that it's kind of moving out of the seedling stage. You can see, yeah, still a lot of canola here. That's not uncommon. When a field like this has been sprayed with Express Pro, and Express Pro does have a residual that will control canola, but really it doesn't control it effectively at the cotyledon stage. When it just starts to put out its first leaf like this is generally when those group 2 herbicides, which are picked up by the roots, will start to take effect. So we'll probably start to see these guys going down soon. I gotta say, it feels very unusual for it to still be this green this time of the year. I mean, you can see this winter wheat is still growing and doing absolutely fantastic here by Picture Butte. You can see we got cottonwood trees in this yard over here that are still mostly green, starting to turn. We got, you know, beautiful green field of alfalfa over here that's still doing great, hasn't been affected by frost yet at all. I want to say the last 3 years in a row, the trees have basically frozen off and the leaves have dropped off still green. Haven't even seen fall colors for years, it seems like. Here we have some oats that are still standing in the field. This field has been relatively slow to develop because it did catch a infection of barley yellow dwarf, so that has caused some stunting and kind of a reduction in height and yield. So it is now starting to head, and for the next week or so we're still looking like we're going to have relatively good growing conditions with no killing frost. So I think we're going to leave it stand for now and see what happens with the weather here next week. They've kind of pulled back on the rain and the frost forecast for next week. So the longer we can leave this standing, the more yield we're going to get for tonnage per acre. We'll probably pick up a couple 100 pounds an acre every day of good growing conditions. This field of barley stubble was very green last week. It pretty much looked like a turf field here. This barley had been hailed on before harvest, so we had a huge volume of volunteer. Now, we got pretty good control of what was here using glyphosate and Blackhawk, but there is some new ones just starting to emerge from some of that moisture we've had in the last week. So I'm sure that until we get a killing frost, this field might well green up again next week, but we will see. It probably won't be as thick as it was before, though. Well, there is still quite a surprising amount of grasshoppers in some of these fields. These 2-striped grasshoppers along the edge of this field here are still pretty active. A lot of them are still laying eggs. And there's a few dead ones here and there, but with no frost or anything to kill them off yet, it's surprising how many are still going. And that'll be it for this week. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.